Welcome everybody to the June 3rd LIDS meeting. This meeting, as I should inform you, is being recorded. We take attendance for the Federal Advisory Committee Act. If you have not already, please sign in near the front of the room. You'll see a sign-in sheet and pen on the table. If you're online, we'd appreciate you entering your name and affiliation into chat. A couple of things to note. We have a lot of people attending online, so when you are speaking, be sure to direct your language towards the owls. That's how our online participants can see and hear us. And also, it's really easy to have back and forth conversations with people who are next to you. So please be sure to use the cues so our online participants don't get cut out of the conversation. And with that, I think I'm ready to hand over to you.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for everyone who's here in person and everybody who's online as well. Today, we're going to have a couple of presentations on the IDF and also on urban. And then we're going to go over some committee business, talk about some items possibly to take to the leadership workshop, and anything else that your heart can desire to talk about. Again, thanks everybody for coming, and I'd like to go just around the room and do introductions. And so I guess I'll start with myself. I'm Rebecca Holland, and I represent HAMTAC, the Hanford Atomic Metal Trades Council.
I'm Richard, I represent, I'm vice chair, and I represent the city of West Richland.
I'm Ryan Miller with Ecology.
Rob Davis with the city of Pasco.
Well, for member of the public, Judge Pat Knott, support that facilitation effort.
Megan Tripp, Department of Energy, DFO. Alville, Cat support. Colleen Drinkard with Hamper Mission Integration Solutions with DOE. Carmen Rodriguez, a project engineer, DOE.
Charles LaFrance, legal holders.
Susan Coleman, public at large.
Parson, public online.
And going down our list online, if you'd like the opportunity to introduce yourself and have your microphone, I'll run down the list as I see it. And apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. Start with Aaron.
Aaron Siefkin with Central Washington Building Trades.
Dan Solitz.
Good morning, Dan Solitz, member of the public.
Dana. Matt Jacobson.
Good morning, Matt Hendrickson, Oregon Department of Energy, alternate member.
Larry.
Good morning, Larry Brandt, public at large.
Matt Lynch.
Matt Lynch, Nose Per Stripe.
Matthew Campbell.
Matthew Campbell, CTUIR.
Next we have Tom Rogers, whose microphone is not working, so I'll introduce him. He's with the Washington State Department of Health. Next up we have Naoko.
Good morning, Naoko Shifan from Ecology.
Sarah. And is there anyone I skipped over that would like to have a chance at introducing themselves?
Hi, Josh.
Good
This
morning.
is Mia. I don't know if you called on me or not, but Mia Burke with Hanford Challenge.
There's someone else in there?
Good morning, all. This is Dan McDonald with Ecology.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think with that, we're ready to begin our first presentation. We have Armin joining us for an anniversary presentation last year on June 3rd, 2024. And again, I'll get your slides up and running.
Good morning again. I am Carmen Rodriguez, a project engineer in the Project and Facility Division at the Campo Field office. Next slide, please. So today I will be providing an update on the integrated disposal facility IDF. I will give you an overview of the status of the facility and other operations to support the direct feed for this program. As you can see in the map, you can see, so IDF is situated very strategically in the Hamper site. It's near to two key areas, the waste treatment immobilization plant and the underground tank. And this allow us to minimize the distance that the waste has to travel from WTP to IDF. Next slide, please. So IDF mission, as you can see there, is to provide a safe and compliant low-level and mixed-level waste disposal site to support the DFLAP program and other camper-generated waste. Here, it's a regular, it's a regular class C title landfill. A little bit about the background. So from 2004 to 2006, the initial phase of the construction was completed at a cost of $25 million. That included two large double-line disposal cells with a drainage system. As you can see there in the right top pictures, we have the tree land a picture of the site, and then in the bottom side, we can see the cells after the first phase was completed. The dimensions of the cell are 1,500 feet wide, 76 feet long, and 40 feet deep. And it has room for future expansion if it's necessary. Next slide. From 2018 to 2023, we successfully completed the construction and upgrade, infrastructure upgrade, like I mentioned before, to support the lab operations. This included to build 4 structures to support the workforce and handling waste. We completed the installation of essential utilities like water, electrical, and sewer systems. Also, there was 2 concrete pads that were constructed, and then there was installation of 8,275 linear feet of fencing around IDF, and also a new access road to IDF. So what's in those pictures, in the top picture, you can see those 3 structures. 2 of them will be used to inspect some of the equipment, and I will show point that later better. We see one of the pads complete, and the other, like the black area, that black area is where they have constructed a second treatment pad. In the picture below there, you can see the complete dome facility and some of the structures that will support the workforce. Here we have a picture showing how the cover of the dome was placed, and that's in the top picture. And in the bottom picture, we have a complete dome assembly. Each of the tanks can hold 400,000 gallons of water that, contaminated water that is collected from the cells in this beautiful rain of dust suppression activities. Like I mentioned before, so we have we completed some of the facilities to support our process. On the right side, we have 2 buildings that will support one of our inspections. The top picture will support the transport inspection, and the right bottom building will support the pallet inspection. And I will show you the transport and the pallet in the next slide. And we have the 2 pads on the left side. Next slide, please. Some of the pictures of more equipment that we'll be using. So, I was talking about the transport, the triple transporter, and that's the picture on the top right side, that will be carrying the pallets from WTP. The bottom picture of the right side is the transporter going through the, inspection building, being inspected. On the left, we have a forklift and a excavator. The bottom picture, that excavator that we'll be using with the grapple to remove the containers from the pallet and put it into the cell. Here was one kind of give you like overall overview of the pathway that the containers will follow from WTP to IDF. So the containers filled with glass will be placed into the pallets at the expo of WTP, and then they will be carried to IDF. Then those pallets will be loaded onto the storage pad to cool down. After the cool down period, these pellets will be transported by a single pellet transporter into the cell, where the excavator will remove the pellet, will remove the canister with glass and place it onto the cell. I don't have good pictures about that process yet because we're still getting for our operations, but that's kind of like a general overview of the process that we will be following. After the transport load of the pellets onto the storage pad, it will go through the inspection building. And after the canister is removed from the pallet, then the pallet will go through another inspection too. And that kind of will be like a process, a repeated process. Next slide. Current status. So from 2024 to 2005, we completed all our community readiness activities. So we completed all the upgrades to our facilities. We have all the equipment that we will be using. We executed our mock-ups. We completed our procedure developments and also our department of transportation inspections. In September 25, 24, we received the final, the final plastic permit was issued. Like I mentioned, we did all our readiness activities, making sure that we validate our procedures and also conducting our personal training. And what we have that is just like an overview. So we conduct our mock-up activities. I'm going to show you a preview that will show the process of bringing the transported pellets from WTP to IKEA.
Next slide.
So here I'm showing some of the pictures of that mock-up activity that we conducted. So we have the transport here with the three pallets. We have our staff performing checks on those pallets, making sure that we're following our procedures and validating our procedures, as I mentioned before. And here we have the last picture on the right. We have a excavator with the robot placing the canister onto the cell. So the main takeaway is IDF is fully equipped and ready to support VFL operations.
Okay, for the agencies to offer regulatory perspective. So Ryan is, or sorry, Roberto is gonna be here till about 10:30, so we're just on the politics.
Yeah, I was gonna kick it over to Dan and Nowco for any comment we have. Dan, did you want to start? And then Nowco, if you had anything else you wanted to add?
I can do that. Thank you, Ryan. For those of you who have not actually seen those containers in person, it's worth the doing. They're huge and they're very much specifically oriented to the task at hand. So if you ever get a chance to see them up close, take advantage of that. A couple of points for you, and then I'll turn it over to Nowco if she would like. Ecology is certainly ready. We're moving forward on the law facility, so the idea of being ready is a good thing. What we would tell you is that in March of this year, we completed a review of the construction certification for the facility, the leachate collection system, storage pad, treatment pad. Our engineers actually conducted a construction inspection through the review, so we're pretty satisfied the way things are at this particular point, and we're ready to go when everybody else is. The other thing I would offer is that according to Nowco, there are no public review comment periods needed to support IDF operation at this point. And her perspective is that this is a great accomplishment. Nowco, anything to add?
Thank you, Dan. I don't have anything else to add. Thanks.
That, I think we're ready to move on to questions. If you're in the room, you can flag me down, as Richard is doing, and if you're online, you can raise your hand in Teams as Dan Soltz's done. So Richard, and then Dan.
What are the weight of the container? One single?
I don't have that number.
Okay. And what's the disposition of the leachate? Can you speak up, sir? What's the disposition of the leachate?
Okay, the leachate will be transported to ETF. The effluent.
Okay. Good. Big facility.
Yeah.
We wrote down that question on weight, so we'll get an answer and get it back to you guys.
Next up, we have Dan Soltis online.
Yes, thank you. I'm curious about the solid secondary waste that's generated by the waste treatment plant. Are you going to do a separate presentation on that? And are you planning on commingling the solid secondary waste with the glass?
I don't have that information on the secondary waste to provide at this moment, but I will get back to you on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just saying that last year when we took our tour of the facility, we got to go and see the leachate area and the pads, and that was a very good tour that we got to see. I think one of my biggest questions is has to do with the net inventory that you plan on having in that and how expandable it is.
Oh, IDF?
Yeah.
So IDF is allowed to expand 2 more cells.
2 more cells.
I think that's, compared to Earth, which is very small. At this point, that's.
Yeah, basically, we really don't have any huge concerns over the IDF facility, noting that it was, specially designed for the flash waste that's coming out of the LAW facility. And we know great care has gone into analyzing it and determining it. So I'm really happy that we're now ready to go on this and that we see no further roadblocks from proceeding with the actually hot material being transported there.
Yeah, so we're ready for the operation to start.
I have a question from Matt Henderson online.
Hi, this is pretty new, and thank you for joining us. Could you discuss a little bit about what IDF's doing? The recent risk budget tool has come out and showed a pretty significant increase in the risk budget of technetium 99 in particular, and that it's going to be reevaluated due to how much is expected from the HEPA filters. Can you talk about the process moving forward on reevaluating that particular waste stream when it comes to IDF?
So what I understand is IDF, in order for the waste to be disposed of IDF, it has to comply with the WAF. And if that level of technician is higher, so that one needs to be, find another way, I guess, to dispose that. But it has to comply, in order to be disposed of IDF, it has to comply with the IDF requirements. I'm not sure if that's helpful.
Well, I'm a little interested in the process moving forward. I know it has to comply. You better meet that performance assessment type of a deal and what all the compliance is based off of. But I'm kind of interested in how a reevaluation for a stream like the HEPA filters would happen at IDF. What is the process around that?
Okay, so at this point, I only have that, I guess I don't have that full answer to your question at this moment. But I will.
No, I appreciate you looking into that, and thank you for taking the question. I appreciate you being here.
And it's a good question too, so I will probably to learn more. Thank you.
Maybe you said it in your presentation and I missed it, but what is the capacity of each one of the pads? Like how many containers can sit on each?
I did mention it. I'm so sorry. Sorry, I don't have the numbers top of my head, but
You want to know how many will fit in each?
stuff.
Yeah, what's the capacity of each cell?
Differentiate between the south and the bad. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're talking about more than glass containers, the number of glass containers.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
More questions on IDF?
It's kind of interesting seeing this actually moving forward since IDF was being built when I first brought it in for 20 years ago, so. But it's definitely finally working and being used. They filled a number of containers at law during the preparations for hot operations. Are those going to be disposed in IDF or if any had been placed in IDF, if you actually have shown some photos of, are those going to be removed because they're not radioactively contaminated?
We have not received any radioactive contaminated, waste containers yet. And those were sent back to, what I understand, those were sent back to the WTP. There's nothing being disposed at IDF yet.
Okay, so the ones that photo have been sent back then, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you describe a little bit of the Department of Transportation's inspections that are going to be performed?
There was this complied with DOT, I think, about what the labels that the container has to have and match it with the holders. And also the type of there was I need to do type of. Sorry.
Is it just a paperwork inspection, or are they actually going to inspect the final canisters, inspect the truck, inspect the tires, all that kind of activity? What will the Department of Transportation do?
So we have a kind of like a procedure that they review, and then we will inspect, the containers itself, the holders, and the transporter.
Okay, thank you.
So the path to IDF will include going out on Route 10. I'll go for.
Dan Stoltz, someone has a question?
Yes, can you discuss the criteria, the waste acceptance criteria, for both the solid secondary waste and the glass?
Oh, I'm sorry, you mentioned that, the secondary waste.
Can you repeat this question?
Dan, can you repeat your question?
Yes, can you discuss the waste acceptance criteria for both the glass and the solid secondary waste for IDF?
For the secondary waste, I don't have any information at this point. For the glass, it's for IDF in general, it will be low level waste. And so it will be low level waste and mixed low level waste. But I don't have information about the sector.
Okay, you don't know what the radiation field around the glass would be?
No.
Okay, thank you.
So, so we, Dan brought up the idea of the technetium and the filters. So you're going to explain to me how the waste glass is going to be stored different than the grouted filters.
So the waste, so everything that goes to IDF needs to be encapsulated. That's one of the requirements.
Immobilized, right?
Immobilized, okay. And so at this point, with the budget tool, what I understand is, there's those limits that are accepted by IDF. And everything that meets those requirements will be accepted at IDF using the budget tool, according to the budget tool. Everything that is out of that limit, I'm not sure where will be the program this time. I don't have that information. That's about the waste glass. About the filters, so we don't have treatment. We have a treatment plant, but we don't have a treatment process yet at IDF.
Okay.
And that's still in future discussion.
Okay, yeah. All right. I was hoping that you could tell me how they would be packaged, and would they be segregated from one end of the IDF to the other end? I mean, would you segregate your secondary waste different in a different area on the pad, or we gotta commingle these, or?
So, yes, so I think, like I mentioned at this point, we don't have a clear path. So I don't have information on a path for the secondary waste, since I can't provide, the setup of how we will handle IDF.
Okay, so then, Becky, can we somehow get some definitions on what they're planning? Can we ask for that?
Yeah.
Should I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, me.
Ask her what you want. I'm not.
We're just checking all the questions and we'll get them, and then
Okay.
anything we can get answers to, we'll send back to you.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to do.
So let's just add some clarification to what Dan said, is that it's still kind of an unknown of the technetium issue. And so we'd like to understand a little bit more about how the HEPA filters and that secondary waste, some tooling or whatever is gonna go in there, how is it gonna be packaged? And then, I'm looking at anything that'd be grouted. I would certainly expect long-term leachate would, be a little more exacting in its measurements, whereas the glass we know is very stable.
Right.
And so, so anyway, some more definition on that would be,
Yeah, just one clarification.
yes.
But we have Mia online.
Hi, yeah, I'm wondering if you can just give us a really big picture overview on what waste is going into IDF. So my understanding is that the vitrified low activity waste from the law facility will be disposed in IDF. What else is going into IDF?
Okay, so, what else going, so it's for, waste that is, anything that is used for, sorry, I lost my thoughts. Like you said, we will leave all that, island will go to IDF at this point, which, will go into those glass containers. Like I mentioned before, I don't have more information about everything else, and I will add it to that question yet to make sure that what I'm saying is the correct thing.
If I can make a suggestion, it seems like a lot of these questions would be, what we're really asking for is an overall waste flow picture from secondary waste, solidary waste. What's going where, where's it coming from, where's it going to? Maybe a big picture like that might help with things, including criteria for those wastes in that process. So that maybe everybody, that kind of help.
I think so. Actually, it's in a declaration that it's class C or lower.
I'm sorry.
It's class C waste,
Oh,
correct? The class C facility.
Less than half.
It's a secondary.
Subtitle C is, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Subtitle C is just the nature of IDF, where it's able to take, in what my knowledge is it can take the mixed level waste.
But we gotta be clear, there's two type B, with DOT type C is in. No, it's this one, three types, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, so
But I also,
The landfill is classified as a type C landfill, which is an inert landfill. You don't have biological. Class C is way high. Yeah, so it's not class C. Well, it's a class C landfill, not for class C waste.
Right.
yeah,
Okay,
it
so-
has to be less, it's class C or
I
less.
found what I'm looking for, so, okay, so IDF is permitted to accept only containerized, mixed low level waste and low level waste. So, like you mentioned, IDF is primarily designed for disposal of ILA glasses. And I found the information I guess I'm looking for, and containerized secondary waste from tank waste treatment. And we accept all the regular handful sites, waste sites. The ID West acceptance criteria requires treatment of workfield for individually secondary waste containers. Like you mentioned, with very specific route formulation. The treatment for now, the treatment in the void field will be off-site because we don't, like I mentioned before, we don't have that capability at this moment. So hopefully that helps a little bit, but I need to provide you with a more detailed flow sheet about the waste that will be disposed of the idea.
Could you repeat what you said, the treatment of the what will be outside?
The treatment in void will fill. Because we don't have the treatment, so like you will dispose in, what you mentioned, the
HEPA filters.
HEPA filter.
Oh.
Okay, so those
Void
need,
space?
voice-based, voice to every.
Okay.
So now, did you have some clarity to that?
What's that?
Online, we have a Alco with ecology.
Yes. I just wanted to point out to Mia's question for the waste stream going to IDF for disposal. We have a dangerous waste permit for the IDF. If you look at the appendix BB, which is waste stream description, it does cover what sort of waste going to IDF. And that include the ILO glass, low activity waste melter, like used melter, used bubbler, and then DFLO, secondary waste, and so on. So I hope that's helpful for you.
Thank you, Naoko. That's very helpful.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Matt, you have the floor again.
Oh, boy, yeah. Didn't mean to steal the thunder earlier. I wanted to second Rob's ask about a presentation, and I'd really like for the inclusion of how the secondary waste stream in particular, how much of that will be destined for IDF versus how much is for offsite. Because some of the previous work on secondary waste in particular had quite a few cubic meters going off-site, which I do believe some of this HEPA was. Because these HEPA streams are over the inventory limit, especially on a groundwater protection limit, and even I think the total limit, like 160 versus 101 or something like that. So I'd be very interested to hearing more about these particularly tech high materials that have the ability maybe to blow out your limits.
Okay.
Oh, that's Josh, I put the link to the part of the permit now goes referencing in the chat. Maybe that's something that Megan and then can include when they give the answers to the question.
That's for Rebecca.
So I'm wondering how that area is going to be hosted. I know that it's, fenced off and all that stuff, but is it going to be a radiological area? Is it going to be a potentially contaminated area, buffer area, an RMA? Well, with what else? That's what I'm asking. Do you know how that area is going to be hosted?
No, I will get back.
Questions or thoughts on this topic?
Can we have this topic on the next agenda to wrap our arms around it and complete it?
Certainly explore that. I don't know if that's a certainty or not.
So essentially it's like another briefing, but answering these questions. Do you want us to try and get answers to you before then, or do you want to wait until your next subcommittee?
I would say it probably would depend on if we can get another presentation.
Okay.
If we can't get another presentation to answer these questions, then certainly we want answers to the question.
So I'll look at, I think some of the issues we're running into, just to make you guys aware, and this is a discussion for leadership workshop on Thursday, but headquarters approvals are ridiculous right now. Like they're taking, like we got approval last night for this presentation and we had sent it out months ago. So if we structure maybe the next subcommittee as a discussion and not a presentation, I think that will help a lot because we can get answers and talk rather than having to have a presentation approved.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, however it has to be done. Yeah, discussion would be perfect.
Yeah.
Right. If you can get the project manager in here.
Yeah.
In addition to Carmen and,
Yeah.
be able to answer
Yeah.
all,
Well,
a discussion is wonderful. We don't need a fancy long pictures.
Yeah. Because it takes forever. And so I think that's something that I'm gonna try and talk to you guys about on Thursday too. It's just like how we restructured in our current Because nothing's the same, right? So we have to figure out what works. So,
Yeah, I just feel like there are a lot of unanswered questions and.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so we can do that in September meeting, September committee meeting. Be wonderful.
One thing I find really useful is some of your DOE data sheets. And this information could be included on some data sheets.
Those have to go through headquarters. But we can, we'll send you, we can do what we have cleared already, but if they don't have any that have already been cleared, I mean, we're months away from having those, unfortunately, but we will do whatever we can
Thanks.
to help.
Any questions on idea?
I will say with that, if you guys see some other questions in the next day or so, if you can email them to that email address that we had created, then we'll capture them and get them to the speaker, however we're gonna do our next meeting. If you think of things that weren't asked between now and then.
email address that you created. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we talked about it in May, and I'm gonna mess it up now. I have 6 inboxes right now, so.
Is it Hanford Advisory Board at hanford.gov?
At rl.gov.
Oh,
Is what this is saying.
A little different though. There's one on the ad website for if your contact us is listed.
Okay. They're trying to transfer everyone to hanford.gov, so I don't know if they just did it.
That is the correct one.
RL. Yeah, RL. So Hanford Advisory Board at rl.gov.
okay.
And watch that, maybe email that, but then like CC me. So that it's for sure captured. Yeah, but that way, and we'll kind of talk about it Thursday as well, but that's kind of what we're hoping to set up is before we have presentations for you guys. If you know you have certain questions you're gonna ask, you can send them to us beforehand. Within reason, right? We don't want to get blasted with like 100 questions, but if you guys can work together to come up with your top. However many.
Well, you know, in the past, before we formed our agenda, yeah, we would talk about it and then we had framing questions.
Yeah.
So that helped with the presenter when they came, so that they could speak to those, what people's, questions were. So maybe that's something in the leadership workshop that we could talk about, maybe getting back to that. Because that definitely helped in the presentation and it helped, people get their answers, to their questions.
Yeah, they can notice that too, Jim did talk about it on Thursday more. That's kind of what we did. I think it was Rob that sent a bunch of questions before Ben's presentation to that full board, and that seemed to help. And so we gave all those to Ricky before and just set a process, right? And it might be where that's where the subcommittee presidents and leadership can, like, just the responsibility of consolidating questions. That way we're not getting a bunch of repeat questions from people.
Yeah, I put in chat a link for the current Hanford fact sheets that include the public hearings, if anyone wants to explore those. So on the topic at hand, do we have any more questions on IDF for today?
I felt it was a really good tour. What we took was last year and probably should be repeated, but a lot of seeing it and then reading about it really puts it in context.
Yeah.
So that was, yeah.
Sounds like the end of questions on this topic. And we are halfway between
Ahead of schedule.
in the starting and our scheduled break, so we can question for our presenter and our chair. Do we want to take an early break or power through to our next presentation?
This is the next presentation.
Okay.
The next presentation is over, yeah. So is everybody good with that? They're taking a break right now, just move on to the next presentation. I would say, yeah, because the coffee stand doesn't open till 10. So it's kind of self-serving.
I'd like to make one correction from what I said at the beginning. I said a member of the public. I am not a member of the HAB. So several HAB members who are members of the public, just said member of the public. I am not a HAB member.
The public.
I am the public, yes.
So with that, I think we're gonna move on to the next topic, because the environmental restoration is spoken to. Rodriguez.
And I'm Carmen, in our, over, yes. So I will provide an update on earlier, and, I will talk a little bit about the super cellulose. So earlier is, a CERCLA regulated land, photo facility, and assets low level radioactive chemical waste and waste generated from demolition, remediation, and other cleanup activities at the site. But you see the map, Earth is located between 200 east and 200 west areas. It's large engineering landfill, similar to idea, I think similar to Portland. It started operation since July of 1996.
Pam, could you speak louder, please?
Oh, thank you. So it started operations in July 1996. It has 10 disposal cells so far, over 107 acres of land. The current capacity of Earth is 21 million tons of waste. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned before, construction began with in 1995 with cell 1 and 2. There was an expansion added in 1997 with cells 3 and 4. And another expansion in 2002 with cells 5 to 8. And in 2009, it was introduced supercell 9 and 10. It's last that has a category 3 facility and can handle from 30 containers a day up to 600. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's an overview of Earth. Like I mentioned before, it's for about 107 acres. And to the date, it had received more than 19 million tons of waste from the site. So Earth accepts low-level radioactive waste, excluding the spent fuel, spent nuclear fuel, high-level waste, transgenic waste, or anything greater than NCR commission class C. All waste must be clearable at Earth to make the land disposal restriction requirements, and it only accepts waste generated from the campus site. So since it started operation in 1996, it operates on 1 shift per day. So this, you can see in the picture here, I have a couple pictures showing a dump ramp dumping the waste, and then we have a compaction instrument machine compacting the waste there. Like I mentioned before, we can receive from 30 to 80 truckloads per day, and the highest annual disposal has been 2.3 million tons. So the waste is compacted or grouted to fill the void, which minimize settlement and creates a firm foundation for the final pour. So Earth has 900 roll-off and roll-off containers and 47 roll-off trucks. I'm sorry. So far, the fleet has traveled over 5 million miles per year, which is like the equivalent of 2008 times cylinder load. You have a picture of the roll-on container on the left side. So RDF is constructed with the wall liner system that handles to collect and remove any water from the suppression activities, precipitation or snow. As you can see there in the picture on the right top, we have the two the view of the two leachate tanks. The leachate tanks can hold about 400 gallons each, and the leachate from RDF is pumped to the 200 West Pump and Treat Facility. Next slide, please. So I have a video here showing some of the activities that were performed during the 9 and 10 construction. That's construction.
Sound doesn't get shared apparently, but it's only sounds like wind anyways.
Okay, so the comfort rate is also forecast demand for additional capacity at the end of fiscal year 2027. And this is mostly because of the 108 renovation and the demolition of the 334 building. Each cell can accommodate 2.8 million tons of waste. The expansion activities will include excavation of a new cell, the expansion of the existing leachate piping, and construction of a new crest pad and utilities and roads, etc. That liner system will be fused to the current system. Will connect to all the cell tanks, the 10 cells. Next slide, please. So here we have a kind of like a diagram of the earth multi-layer protected liner system, and this provides a robust protection to the groundwater system, to groundwater, I'm sorry. So we have two layers, a primary layer and a secondary layer. The primary layer mostly will have to collect all the water from rain, snow, from all the suppressing activities. In the secondary layer will allow us for like early detection from the primary layer. And also will give room for more water collection too. And so that's kind of like what the multi-layer or RDF will look like. And you know, it's kind of like hard to see, but so we have the operation layer, the textile filters, the primary drainage with gravel and occasionally there. So, but it's kind of like, that picture describes the layers or the components of the layers. And here I'm just kind of showing a, kind of like overview layout of the, and so you can see all the cells. I don't know if you can see, but the red line shows where supercell 11 will be excavated there. So, if actually for the 2009, the broad amendment authorizes early expansion, with approval of, EPA. And, the Humboldt Field Office, PM, has approved the early admission. With that approval, the design phase, the cost and schedule has been approved for, supercellular. The main takeaways here are, Humboldt, with as we need more space at the end of fiscal year 2027. The construction of supercell 11 has been approved, and the operation approval is expected by 2027. So that's kind of like a general overview of the and supercell 11.
Jeff, quality's perspective?
Yeah, so EPA is the regulatory lead on ERDIF. I know we started early, but I was messaging Roberto. I think we're on their way down. So once the EPA gets here, they can provide their perspective and answer any kind of questions on the regulatory lead. That being said, I know Eddie's on. Eddie, do you have any perspective for ecology? And yeah, just making it clear, yeah, EPA is the lead on ERDIF.
Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about ERDIF. ERDIF is EPA lead as far as oversight, but it is critical to the cleanup mission on the Hanford site. We do consider the expansion to be critical to some of the ongoing cleanup work on the Hanford site. So that's all I got.
That we'll move to board member questions and check back in with EPA once that's bought them. All right, I think we'll leave with Ed.
So just a quick question, is there, other than the size, is there any difference from a regular cell, a supercell?
No.
That's what we can.
There was approval to do a second layer of waste disposal, I believe, over cells 1 and 2, that it was not mentioned in your presentation.
Yeah, and I don't have that information.
So as we noted this last week, we had some heavy windstorms here. And, you know, at one time we had asked whether or not you'd be planting vegetation on top of the supercells in order to avoid having to wet them all the time, in order to keep the dust down, the drifting, the sand, et cetera. I see trails in here where people have wetted, and you know, and that sort of, but in cells 1, 2, and 3, and 4, it just looks like it's just open sand. Are we allowing it to be drifting sand through there? Or are we going to fix the sand on top, fix it, or what's the plan there?
So I don't have the closure plan with me, but it should be a compact cover on top of the you know, of the cell as part of the closure plan. But like I mentioned, I don't have a detailed closure plan with me, but I can get back to you on that. But there's a plan to follow.
It's not just adding water.
Yeah, so there's, but I will let you on that, but I don't have the details on that.
Thank you.
Question from Rebecca.
a couple questions. On your backslide, it says operational approval is expected by April 30th. What does that mean?
Oh, it means that we will be ready to receive waste.
So it'll be built and ready to receive waste.
So it will start construction. So we're starting construction, just the beginning, this year. And then we expect to have it completed and start operations by,
Okay.
by 2027.
Okay. My other question is I know you mentioned some of the things that aren't allowed in there. Are PCBs and things like that allowed in URDA?
Sure.
EPA.
Kathy?
Yeah, I just have one question. Here they come. I was on the contractor that actually built the facility. How many more cells do we expect to build for the projection of the project, you know, for Hanford?
I think,
Or is supercell 11 going to be the one that's going to handle all the rest of the waste that we have on site?
Earth has a expansion capacity of 22 or 23 cells.
Okay. That's what I was kind of wondering, if we were going to expand more. Okay.
Sorry to put you on the spot since you just joined us. We started a little bit ahead of schedule.
Yeah, little. That's
And
okay.
we touched on EPA, or sorry, regulatory perspective, heard from ecology. And if you're ready, you can also provide your perspective on it.
Well, I saw the presentation before, so hopefully it's the same. Yeah, no, I mean, we're glad that the supercell 11 is moving forward, but we definitely don't want to see URDF expand into all of its space, right? So we're hoping that it will be managed and used for what it's needed for in terms of the significant amount of cleanup work that remains, particularly in the Central Plateau. And there's obviously some couple of large projects still for the river corridor for URDF. But yeah, just wanted to come and hear what Q&A is going on too, so thanks.
Next up, we have a question from Dan Phillips online.
Yes, I saw that you mentioned just a one shift operation. And if the deconstruction of the bigger buildings like the 324, if those go to two shifts, are you going to put on another shift? Or if they go to three shifts, put on another shift so that stuff doesn't pile up underneath blue fixate and wind comes up and blows away the fugitive radionuclides?
At this point, we have a plan for one shift, as we can handle up to 80 cans per day, as we are doing right now, but we can go up to 600 cans per day. So one shift is for now.
So you're going to confine the deconstruction of large buildings so material doesn't pile up on the grounds to one shift?
I believe one shift can handle, like I mentioned, one shift can go up to 600 cans per day.
But if you're deconstructing on a second shift or a third shift, then you're going to have material piling up, waiting for the first shift, right?
Don't understand, but I can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
So Mia has wants a clarification on something she heard, and then we'll go to Rob and then Richard. Mia, you're up.
Yeah, it's a little hard to hear some of the answers in the room. Did you say that URDF could expand to a total of 22, 23 cells?
Yes.
Okay.
Rob.
Yeah, these questions are just repeating from before that ecology can answer probably. Some of the things that we'd asked, one was, is any mixed waste going to be going into their organics, toxics and things of that sort. The second question was, is in the closure, okay, the second question could you talk more about this double layer stacking thing that people are talking about, putting the bottom layer and then soil and the layer on top? And then the third question is what's the final gonna look like? Are you gonna put vegetation on these, or how are you gonna keep the dust down? Rather than just wetting them all the time, what are we gonna do there? So those three things came up.
Okay, so I'm Annie McCartney with EPA. And, so I'll try to help out with some of those questions, I guess. The ERDF does accept mixed waste, and the disposal of any waste in ERDF needs to meet LDR's land disposal restrictions. So it depends what specifically is in the waste. So if there's certain chemicals or organics or whatever, they have to be treated to meet LDRs before disposal. And then for the layering, ERDF originally the cells were one layer. You can define it that way. And then we went back and had there's a ROD amendment, I think at the time, or an ESD to add the second layer to build up the waste facility to increase the capacity. And so now when we construct the super cells, we plan for them to be the same height across ERDF so that it's not gonna be, heights were part of it for some reason, right? It adds the capacity without increasing the footprint more. And so that's why we did that. It's pretty standard with landfills, right? They put the waste into shifts or layers. And considering that our waste is almost all macro encapsulated and void filled, and I say almost because, I probably have to super fact check myself on that, but we don't see a lot of settling that you see in a normal landfill, like a municipal landfill. And so the ability to go upward makes a lot of sense. For your last question on the final cap, ERDF is designed the same as any RCRA landfill as well, even though it's a CERCLA disposal facility, we still meet the RCRA construction. And so the plan is to, at the end, put a RCRA cap over it. And I believe, I don't remember if it's vegetated or not. I haven't looked at that in a very long time. But ERDF will be capped in accordance with the same RCRA requirements that we do for any hazardous waste landfill.
So then why hasn't 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are now closed, been capped?
Because the whole thing will get capped at once. Is one continual barrier over the top of it. And so the whole ERDF will get capped at the same time.
Any suggestions from that, Patrick?
No, I think Annie did a great job at answering, especially the mixed waste question. Just for context, there are 2 permitted landfills on the Hanford site as well. The integrated disposal facility and trenches 31, 34. But I think Annie did a great job at answering that. So that's all.
Next up, we have a question from Richard.
Well, I was going to respond to Dan's comment about demolition and earth, accepting during the day only. During the PFP demolition, it was around the clock. But you have to load the cans, and what you end up with is a tremendous process by which you're filling up cans and covering them and prepping them to go shipping to ERDF the next day. So ERDF not working around the clock doesn't affect demolition of a large building, because that's why they have, I forgot how many cans you have, but they have a lot of cans, and so part of the demolition is having a very large laydown area for cans. Also, I think the question that didn't get asked, the answer is pasta waste. will Erdith fleet Tosca waste?
What's Tosca waste?
PCBs.
And I believe the answer is yes, and maybe Eddie knows that one actually, but I think that we do believe, take PCB waste as well.
Non-liquid.
Non-liquid, yeah, thank you. Yes.
Solidified.
Yeah, or like if something had come into contact with waste and then therefore it had touched PCB waste, right? But it's not, the waste, the debris item itself is not a liquid, obviously. So, yeah, we can accept that.
Next up, we have a question from Pam.
So we know that, that there's regulatory approval to put on the second layer of waste. Have you done that? Is there a second layer of cells 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, those were filled in the past. So before we added, I don't remember, I think supercell, even the first supercell, I don't know, it was before I started with ERDF, they went vertical first.
Right.
Before adding on the next supercells over. So yeah, so the initial cells, 1, 2, 3, those all have already been filled upward.
Just 4 of them have the second layer?
I think all of them. I'd have to go back and look at the.
Yeah, I don't have the information.
I'm pretty sure it's all of them, but I'd have to go back. I can verify that and send it if you guys are interested.
Thank you.
Questions on ERDF? Anything in the room? How about online?
Okay, so we have a question on the protection.
You repeat what that question was?
A while back, it wasn't me, but there was a question asked about rodents and the contamination that they may spread. Is there rodent protection around this area for the Earth?
Sorry,
So Rob was repeating a question from earlier where somebody was interested if there was protection from rodents around ERDF, so they don't get into contamination and spread it.
I think, there's a chain, right? They can't get it.
There's a chain link fence. But they have a whole environmental control program, monitoring biological control program for the whole Hanford site, and I believe HMIS supports those activities. They definitely do control like the birds coming in and out, the factors around the site, but I don't know the specifics of what all of that entails.
Questions on ERDF? I think that's it. So we're about at time for our.
Original break time now.
Thank you, Carmen, for coming and presenting to us. We appreciate it. And thank you, Andy, for answering so many of our questions.
Thank you.
So with that, I think are we ready to head on break? Yes. Well,
Take 15 generous minutes.
15 generous minutes. 10:30 or something there. Alright, so we are live again, ready to begin our LIDS business section.
All right, so first up on the agenda is leadership elections. And Ryan's gonna let us know who the nominees are for these prestigious positions.
Yeah.
Sit down. Oh, you said Brian.
Oh, shoot, because I was looking at you. That was weird. Okay, sorry. Josh.
In that case, we have one nominee who's been submitted so far, and that is Richard Bloom for the position of vice chair. Because we only have one nominee, I think at this time, we can also accept self-nominations. Anyone interested for either chair or vice chair? And
Sure, can we bribe you to be chair?
No.
No.
yeah, begrudging,
Yeah,
begrudging
right.
willingness for vice chair, no higher, it sounds like. Is there anybody in the room or online that would be interested in serving as LIDS chair starting the next fiscal year?
That's, so,
It does have to be a head member. Presidency.
Does it have to be a primary?
They have to be the seat
You
representative.
have nominees for it.
Sorry, what?
Do you have nominees for the chair position?
Sound like no.
We have
No,
nominees
yes.
for the vice chair.
Yes.
Okay.
So a question, can we add exceptions to, I know there's time limits, but maybe extend your time?
You want to think about it?
I said I was willing to do it.
yay.
Well, okay, so maybe our conversation got, not sure what happened there.
Okay, I'm confused.
Hold on.
Okay, so board chair, do we have anybody interested in serving as chair for the next fiscal year? Of the board or the committee? It has to be a board member and has to be a primary board member.
Of the committee.
To be chair, to serve in leadership positions, it has to be a primary board member
Right.
for the subcommittee.
I think that Rebecca did such a great job.
Can you speak up, Rob?
I think that she's
Please.
done such a great job at doing this. But I'd like to nominate you again.
Again. Yeah,
Okay. The question there is, are you willing to serve?
yes, yeah,
They can only hold one leadership position on the board.
understand.
Okay.
Understand.
There's a solution.
Right.
It's not a it's not a,
It's, yeah,
yeah.
this isn't complicated.
Okay, so we have a nomination. Do we have anybody else that's interested in challenging that nomination?
Please.
Okay, so do we have do we have a vote for Becky as chair?
Yeah, Judge.
Is there anybody against?
We need a motion. This is the leadership elections is the only piece.
I move to nominate.
Okay, I want to say, the leadership elections are the only piece that we have to, that we follow Robert's Rules of Order. So that's a true election process.
Right.
So we need a motion and a second.
I move to approve.
To nominate,
We're just gonna do nominations.
we have to do elections, so.
I move to nominate Becky Hollinger as chair of the LIDS committee.
Second.
We've heard some agreement for that. Is there any disagreement?
Well, we do discussion and then we do election
Or maybe.
or entertain, well, it's part of the discussion.
I think, part of the discussion, I could add that Becky is uniquely qualified, being that she lives out there still, and she's in touch, and lives, and workforce is very important to her, so, you have my full support.
Thank you, Rob.
Any other thoughts to share on this nomination?
Call for a vote.
Okay. We're revisiting the vote. And everyone support it?
Yes.
They support, anyone not support? Nobody's not support, so. You are elected once again as chair of the list. And revisiting the vice chair nomination, we have Richard, who
So I would like to nominate Richard Bloom for vice chair of the LIDS committee.
I second.
Any thoughts to share? Richard? Or anyone
Well,
else?
I'll just have to disclose, I will be up for reelection. I actually have somebody running against me for the first time in 8 years. No,
Second count.
14 years with city council.
For city council.
So, but I'm not quite sure anybody on the city council is gonna volunteer to, add.
Oh,
I don't know if you get the backup to show up.
well, you could do it, so.
Yeah.
So it says-
All right, so just full disclosure, I may not be an elected official.
Or anybody else that would be interested in the position of LIDS vice chair that would like to self-nominate? Say Nathan, we're ready to call a vote.
Do we have a motion? Well,
I made one.
do we have a second?
Wrong.
Yeah, Rob seconded
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Everyone supports Richard Bloom as the LIDS vice chair starting this fiscal year? Ayes, anyone not in support?
Excellent.
You are both been unanimously elected. Congratulations.
We are quite the team. I know it's been a long time.
So the next,
Mike, correct.
so the next item on our agenda would be the leadership workshop input. Our incumbent and newly elected leadership will be carrying forward your thoughts and needs for the operations of the subcommittee to a meeting later this week. And this is your opportunity as LIDS members to share your thoughts, anything that is being carried forward and considered for next fiscal year. Anything, and have anything that would like your leadership to carry forward?
Well, we would like a, further answers to the presentations made today. Would be one. Do we need to itemize those or?
I'll write them down.
I do think that's a really good idea, asking us to give you questions that you're gonna have task your teams to go find. I think that's good.
And I will say, I mean, I've had conversations with Sue and Mia already and TPA. This section of the meeting is a little bit wonky, only because how the work plan is going to be handled is a little bit different. So this conversation is hard, right? Because you guys haven't seen the advice that got put into the work plan. So I'd love to get a list of things that you want to see, but also keep in mind that that list might change based on the needs that you guys have for the requested advice. So I will write everything down. I already have this whole thing written down so that we can kind of not have a redo, but just answer more questions. But if there's other things, let me know. But then once we have Thursday too, I think things will be a little bit more clear, so.
So on that note, so we could talk about what would you like Richard and I to take to the leadership workshop as far as for the next year, items for the work plan, because generally that's what we do. It sounds like there may be some things that we don't know about yet.
Yeah,
in
and
the
just in an
works.
effort of keeping it open, there's not going to be much room for additions to the work plan. It's one, so I'm not hiding anything, right? I want to make sure that we're all communicating. I've worked super close and potentially, well, hopefully not get myself in trouble, but with the process of, and I'm sure I'm gonna have to say this 4 times now with subcommittee meetings coming up before Thursday. Work plan, I think in the past has been done different than how I am being told I need to do it now, which is it's for all the other advisory boards, it's a DOE product that goes straight to the boards. For our board, it's weird because I have Ryan and Roberto in ecology and EPA. I was essentially told to create the work plan and then give it to everyone, and that's what we're doing. I'm not doing that. So I worked with Roberto and Ryan, got ecology and EPA in there. Just for a teaser, I think there's 13 pieces of advice this year that we're asking for instead of 2. So I've expanded it and working really hard to like make this whole relationship a lot better moving forward. Not that it hasn't been, because I haven't been here, so I don't know, but, so as far as putting things in the work plan, we're probably not gonna have much changes to the work plan. So that's why this conversation in this moment is hard, because until we have the work plan, which another thing that's weird is I sent it headquarters for approval. It's probably not gonna be approved, but I'm gonna share it with you guys anyway on Thursday. Whether I'm supposed to or not. I'll get in trouble. What are they gonna do? Kick me off? So what I want to do moving forward, my thought is on Thursday, we'll talk about the work plan, and then you can go back to the subcommittee, let them know the advice that we're asking for, and then come up with a list of topics that you guys need to support the advice that we're asking for. Kind of like this is my mom brain, so I apologize, but kind of like the reward chart when you're a kid, right? Like once you get your chores, then you get something fun. I thought if there's other things that you guys want that aren't directly related to advice, but that you guys still want to know about, I will have a running list and work my hardest to get you guys those topics too, but we need to prioritize the advice that's directly related to, prioritize the briefings and the discussions that are related to the advice that we're asking for, if that makes sense. So we can make a list right now and we'll have it all written down on what we're thinking we want, but it's hard for you guys to say what you want, not knowing what the advice is yet, right? So
what you're asking for advice.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I have committed to not giving it until Thursday, because I'm already going into a gray area there. So, if we want to talk now about things that you guys think you want, we'll at least start making our wish list, but then we'll have more clarification once we get through Thursday, if that's okay.
And you have the wish list from the past meeting.
Yes, yeah, and I had Josh help me. It's probably been like a 2-month process. When I first came into it, you guys had talked about this a little bit, I think, at past meetings. I have taken all that advice. So I've worked with internally all of our AMs plus all the lists that you guys already have from previous meetings. So it's not like I'm just like taking everything away. I've worked to go through all of the past meeting minutes from when I wasn't here. So thank you. This is where it gets weird. I apologize for not being on ESC last week, because I wanted to essentially stay at then so that we could go into it. The agendas were already at headquarters anyway, so we couldn't change that. So I'm gonna have to do this spiel 4 times today and tomorrow.
Let me make a comment. We named our committee LIDS, which is land use. I would think that, you know, when you're talking about a solar farm going in out there and other land use, so some, you know, high level land use presentation would probably be appropriate.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we can go more than. This is where I'm probably stepping too far out of my role, but I'm excited to kind of help the process if that's even allowed. Once you guys see advice and stuff, I'd love to help with outreach and stuff. There are a lot of elements related to how can we as a hub and as a group work together. I don't even like saying community outreach, because then it sounds like it falls into co, right? I can't put all 13 pieces of advice into co. So there's going to be some community outreach aspects where, like, how can we get the community involved more than just us 12 people on future land use and future things, so that it's not just a couple people. And so
Things with land use that we talked about, access to Rattlesnake Mountain.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, so we can go bigger than DOE, I guess, is my response to that. Is anything that we can think of that's outside the box for presentations on anything you guys might need regarding land use, we can do.
I have a suggestion for you. I'm participating in a forum that is going to discuss 2 executive orders from President Trump.
Okay.
It's EO 14192 and EO 14270. These are expected to impact DOE and EPA, or basically deregulation mandates being set down by the president's office. I should have more information by the August meeting next week with this group. 14270 is zero-based regulatory budgeting, unleash American energy. And 14192 is unleashing prosperity through deregulations. Some really interesting things in like, before there's a new regulation put in place, 10 regulations have to be removed is the requirement. Vendors, the other thing is, going to be sunset clauses for regulations by both EPA and DOE and the NRC. My particular interest and why I'm participating is the concept of using LMT for regulatory basis, the whole OR process, but they got some pretty simple differences with that. But nevertheless, may I suggest sometime in 2026, we would like to hear from the offices, the impact and the path forward meeting these executive orders. And there's actually a whole bunch more, but those are the two main ones I'm talking.
I'm sure it's gonna be, once we know, we can probably tell you, I don't know when we're gonna know what those impacts are, just because of our staffing.
Yeah, September 25th, figure it out.
Great.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to effect?
That's one has to be submitted.
Oh.
Impact
For
have to be
approval.
submitted. Okay.
The plan.
Are you thinking just for LIDS or are you thinking full board?
This is DOE, EPA.
Full board.
So it would be.
Nationwide.
Yeah.
It's a big picture. Tell me how you're going to deregulate to save money. What?
So the plan has to be submitted September 30th,
September 25th.
September 25th.
I don't even know who's involved with that as far as our office goes, so I'll take the note down. I'm sure it'll be captured in 3 different places. So,
Obviously headquarters, but
yeah,
that should roll down to us.
Yeah.
How are we doing this kind of stuff? So I will report back on that. Obviously.
yeah.
I don't know how it's going to do fair out. I'm not sure who other organizations are participating.
Yeah, it'd be great to hear your perspective after those meetings too. So,
Not really for all agencies or a specific one for nuclear regulatory commission, decriminalization, federal regulation.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
So I just want to throw this, so, the name of this committee is like, he mentioned land use. We also have infrastructure, which, we've generated a lot of advice on infrastructure. Mainly, traffic safety, and hopefully, I'm gonna say this like with a straight face here, like, hopefully that has not been taken off the work plan. Cause I'm sure that DOE is tired of our advice over and over and over.
Yeah,
But
and it's not, so full disclosure, traffic safety was taken off in the sense of, like a briefing on it. But you guys are welcome to submit advice on anything, right? I'm just trying to set you up for, we want to hear everything, and I'm really excited for Thursday because Brian is open and will be an amazing open book to talk to. Unfortunately, we have him for an hour, right? But he'll talk about that. And then I told him we're not even gonna think about sending advice until he's had a conversation with you. And that's something I'd like to, not you, have. That's something that I would like to look at doing moving forward too, is having more of those discussions, because it just feels like in the past, and this is me speculating, so if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but it feels very much like an us versus have situation. I'm trying to make it like a us versus the community and us versus the regulations that are coming down so that we're all working together. And so the advice coming back to the letter, we're not delaying it, we're working on it, but I wanted to have the discussion with you guys first on like what the impacts are, because Brian's gonna be able to be a lot more open to you guys in person politically than he is in a letter. And I'm sure you guys understand that too. And so, yes, traffic safety, we can still talk about, we can still look at alternatives and ideas. There's something I can't tell you because I don't want to take the thunder from Brian, but it's exciting. I'm excited for it for Thursday. So we'll keep working on all of that, but there's other areas too.
Okay.
We are very encouraged with Brian's interest in working with us because we've been lacking that. And he's been fine receptive out of you.
And I think this is hard. It's not me, and I feel awkward going into meetings when I've heard that people are saying like, oh, I would like to have, like, it's so positive, and it's not me, it's all of us as a team, right? Like, I'm excited to see what the future looks, and I think
we just haven't had the right pieces. Like we might have had one right piece of a person in a certain role, but it wasn't all there. And I'm hoping we're kind of there moving into it now, right? So I think I'm really optimistic, and that sounds weird, but I'm optimistic for this year, right? So I think we can make the HAB the best that it's been, especially in this environment. I think now is the time we have to show that HAB is good for us and not just money that they're looking at cutting everywhere like they have been, so. We'll see.
Thanks for working for us.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Well, that gives us hope anyway.
Yeah, and we'll talk a lot about it on Thursday, right? Because I think it goes both ways. I feel like I will do everything that I can for you guys, but that's where I'm gonna need help on the things that we're asking for moving forward too, right? So we can help each other going forward, and I'm optimistic. I think we can make it work. I think change is hard sometimes, but there's been so much change. I'm just trying to make it a positive rather than another negative, because we do not need that right now. There's too much negative, so
Right.
we'll do what we can. Yeah, it's just different.
Yeah.
A thought from Rob.
One, like, I use the traffic as an example, is that, we've got, two recent briefings the last couple of years, and they've been very good, but they don't come with answers.
Right.
And the issue is that when we get presented all these options and not the path we're gonna proceed on, then we start guessing and asking questions. So, for example, the traffic, the last one we had was a great discussion, had good technical merit and that. But in the end, they didn't tell us what they're going to do. And I'm sure that that's kind of hidden between management and budgets and things of that sort. But it'd certainly be nice to start telling us what you're gonna do.
Yeah. So what if the answer is that we're not going to do anything? You just want to hear that? And I'm not saying this is related to traffic, but sometimes the advice is great, but we can't do it, right? Because budget or constraints or the decision's already been made. And that's where I'm trying to set the HAB up for, like, where we can help where we can, rather than advice on things that we can't change. And I don't want to steal too much thunder from Brian, but there's certain things that, like, it would be great to do these changes that we have staff, you guys have put a lot of time and work into. But what does that look like if the funding's not there? Right. So as long as you guys are open to understanding that it's not that, and I think our letters could have been better in the past. Like looking at trying to learn and read from everything. Sometimes politically they aren't allowed to say what they want to tell you guys, right? But sometimes it's just that the funding's not there. So I'm trying to be more direct and open with the HAB on everything moving forward so that you guys don't feel like we're hiding anything. Because I don't think they ever were intentionally hiding things. They were just trying to be nice. But sometimes I think it'd be better to be straightforward with HAB rather than nice.
Right. And that, I think, would help us shrink the bucket to get the answers we want. Because we've got more questions than we could possibly answer and more opinions.
Yeah.
And so, but it'd just be nice for us to know the direction, which we're gonna go. We're just gonna keep this question open forever and ever and ever, or,
Yeah, and I'll work, especially on that letter that came in, and you'll see when you see the work plan come out. I mean, Ryan's seen it, our group has seen it, but rather than, I'm trying to think of one, like what's an example, Ryan, where it was literally like community engagement plan or something, and advice, like that's all that was in there. We've taken everything, we've given a paragraph on like what we're actually asking for and like where we really need your guys' help. So that way there's not all of this crazy interpretation. And then we think, it's like that whole go get me a rock analogy. I don't know if you've heard of it. And then they bring you back a rock and you're like, that rock sucks. But you didn't tell them that you wanted a blue rock or a big rock or whatever. So we're trying to set you up with more specifications on what kind of rock we want so that we can work together and not just keep disappointing,
I think the other thing I wanted to speak to from what Megan was saying was we're also trying to make this, truly a two-way street where, like Megan said, not only are we going to try and provide that advice list that the agencies are required to provide a little bit more context on what we're asking for, why we're asking for it, and then trying our best to actually be able to provide you the materials and resources you need to draft advice on that. I think the last couple of years, there's been some instances of some advice topics that we have requested that we weren't ultimately able to present or do any materials on. I think we're trying to be realistic on what we think we really can bring to support the advice request.
Yeah. And traffic is an example. I mean, this one is not in there. I don't want you to get your hopes up, but like if traffic was one, how can you give us advice if we don't talk to you about like what budget we even have right now? Like what areas of land can we expand roads on or can we open new roads? If you don't have all of that information, how are you gonna give us advice on what would be best if you don't even know what's possible? So we're trying to, like Brian said, set you up with, once you guys see the work on Thursday, I think it'll be beneficial and we'll kind of roll into maybe even having an open discussion in August. I'll have to work with Sue and Mia and see if there's time on our, time in the agenda, but where we can sit and go through, now that we know what's being asked of us, like, let's start brainstorming and talking on like outside the box, what you guys need to know. Like, is it more than just DOE and EPA and ecology briefings that we can do? Like maybe there's city briefings that would help, or city discussions or stuff like that, so. And I wish we would have been able to have this discussion earlier, but I didn't know where we were at, because now I'm thinking I get to do this 4 times. It's gonna be a long couple days.
So if I may, an observation.
Yeah.
When I used to have a more direct time of the DOE side into the HAB, when then and now, and I'm hearing you say it multiple times, well, we just can't talk about that because we've not been authorized to do that from headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the case 15 years ago.
Right.
This Mother May I has encroached in the ability for us to be a citizens advisory board for Hanford, to us going to have ask all these upper echelon peoples.
Yeah.
So maybe a thought would be, what can we do with Brian to kind of break that link so he can have some honest discussions without having spending 90 days to get permission to have that.
Yeah.
And we'll help Brian with that discussion.
Yeah.
We can make direct contacts around him. Honestly, we can.
Yeah.
And say, look, we're just asking for information that you already know. Why does everything have to go to headquarters for approval for discussion with the HAB? Why? What's driving that? It wasn't 15 years ago. I don't know how many presentations I made to the HAB back then.
Yeah.
Tell my boss, here is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Thumbs up, my thumb. So what's going on?
And I think people can be quick to blame current administration, but this started before January too, right?
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
I think that's where it'll be great to have these discussions, and I want to sit and chat with all you guys for ideas, but I think that's where we have to find the gray area, right? But if we can have discussions rather than presentations, that would help a little bit, I think, because we can ask the straight questions moving forward. Presentations, I think the thought is, and this is where it's like a two-way street, right? Because if we have this environment where we know we're having a discussion, rather than a presentation, we can talk more. And then someone posts all over social media, all these things that Brian Hargan says. That goes away. You know what I mean? Like, that's where the respect goes both ways. And so I think we have to make sure things aren't being taken out of context. We're having clear and open communication both ways, and respecting the process. And we just have to make sure that we're careful that we don't ruin this too, where now a discussion and talking points happen.
But I always questions, so where is this process? I don't think it's really defined. It's just kind of verbal thing. Well, send it to me, send it to me, send it to me for approval. There's really not a process.
Yeah.
If you go back to the gist of what these boards are supposed to do, we're
Right.
supposed to be talking with the local, your DOD, DOE, or whatever agency, and we're giving advice to them, and they're supposed to provide us the educational basis to do effective communications and advisory. So, and that's not near as effective as it was 15, 20 years ago.
And that's what we need to talk about, right? And that's what we need to figure out. And I think things are changing too, because 15 years ago, there was also a lot more opportunity to make advice and conversations about the direction that certain projects were going on site, but now projects are like already started or finalized, and so we have to figure out where the HAB fits into that.
Good point. Maybe we don't.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong for us to say that HAB's effectiveness has been diminished. I know a lot of people down here don't want to hear that.
No, but we're finding new ways to change that, and that's why we went from 2 advice actions to 13, because I'm trying to make HAB relevant again. Not that it's not, that was a bad thing to say, I apologize, I'm getting that wrong. I'm trying to make it so that HAB, it can be, it's not gonna be exactly what it was 15 years ago, but HAB can be a huge part of the community again. We just have to find how we get it there because the projects have already started and we can do public comments and stuff, but sometimes the projects are already so far down the line that won't have much of an impact on certain things, but we can have a huge impact on other things, and that's what we're asking for.
I think we are committed under the FACA to self-examine ourselves. And if there is if we're not being totally effective, maybe we need to think about the board's existence in itself, at least in the way it is.
But I think, and I didn't read about it because I want it to go away. I read about it because I want to have to stay. So this is my brain just went to like, this is my fight song. I think this is where I think HAB can be extremely beneficial to the community. And I'm trying to.
Well, it's gotta be a community.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's where the work plan will go, and you'll see that in the next couple of days. And I apologize, I can't have it here, but I'm.
It would be nice to know, what DOE is thinking we're missing. What are we missing?
Brian will talk to you, and I can only speak for I've only been in this spot like 8 weeks, and so, you have to realize that some of the things I'm saying, I'm just being optimistic in areas that maybe that's not where I should be optimistic, but Brian will speak to that a little bit on Thursday. He's excited for what we have in the work plan and where HAB is going to be going, and I don't think it's that HAB is missing things. I think kind of like you mentioned, like things are different 15 years ago where we could make advice and opinions on and like change the direction of where DOE and EPA and ecology might have been going, but now that those projects have already been started, the bigger projects are already going. HAB's not going to say anything that's going to change that. So I don't think it's that HAB is missing anything. I think it's that we were just maybe advising on the wrong things, and then we didn't have, and nothing against Jen and Lindsay and Gary and the people before me, because they did what they could at the time. But I think I came in with a fresh idea of let's change it to what we can use now. So HAB's not missing anything. I just don't think you guys have been given the tools that you need to support DOE the way they think they want to be supported. If that makes sense?
I'd like to know a little bit how they want to be supported.
That's what the work plan says. Yeah, so we'll get there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we have it all laid out and it's exactly how we want to be supported. I mean, we want to be closer with the HAB. We want it to be an us versus the community and an us versus the, administration and us rather than a DOE versus EPA versus ecology versus HAB. So we want to be a team. That's what I say we, like it's everyone, but I'll speak for Brian. I think he's on the same page as me.
Let me interject a comment to what you just said. We're not here to support DOE. We're here to support the citizens of this community and surrounding communities.
Yeah.
That's our first charter.
Yeah.
Not DOE.
But can you say, this is me putting not negative, but what ways can you say that HAB has supported the community in the past couple of years?
It's a good question. Something we should be asking.
So that's what I'm trying to set, have FY26 up for, is for us to be a bigger team, not for you to support us, but for us to work together to show the community and not just Tri-Cities, but even outside of that, like how Hanford is a success and how we're going to keep moving and, having good results, even with the changing climate. So.
What interject that? That's our charter, not supporting you.
Correct. So I might have misspoke a little bit, but I mean, the idea is still the same, right? Like we want to use HAB to work together, not for you to do what we're telling you, but that goes both ways, right? It's just like when we submit advice and we expect the letter to change what DOE is doing. We want it to go both. We want to work together to better the understanding of Hanford.
Two questions that I always get asked in the city council, and one is, are we safe? Okay, and the next one is how can we get more attention in Pasco for our resources to the DOE, and if people recognize we have a huge infrastructure in Pasco, big Pasco, that, and storage facilities and et cetera, yet those things are going to Yakima. Okay, so, those are the two things they get asked. I get asked. Didn't say, are we following the rules? Because I think they all believe the radiation protection and disposal rules and EPA and all that's, they support it. It's not like they say it's wrong. They just want to know we're following it.
Right.
Okay, good talk.
Exciting changes coming.
Huh?
So it sounds like a lot of exciting changes coming.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, it sounds like we'll find out more on Thursday. But there are a couple of items that I do want to cover here before we adjourn. We have the EOC drill coming up, and there's an opportunity for people on this committee to attend that EOC drill. It's a site-wide drill. We have attended it in the past, it was several years ago. It's at the Federal Building, the Emergency Operations Center there at the Federal Building. Again, we have permission to 4 people. Is that what you said? 4 people. I know I was going to attend, and I don't know if you got names from.
Okay, so I am and Rob Parmalee as previous volunteers.
Okay. And Pam, you still plan on attending?
Well, I'm leaving the board, so I think it should be somebody who's continuing with the board to see it. And it used to be part of my job, so I pretty much understand.
Right, okay.
Been there, done that.
Okay.
It's there when the tunnel comes.
So it sounds like we still have 2 more positions open then, for people who are interested. I believe it's the 25th. 26th, okay.
Of June.
Yes, June 26th.
I don't believe that there was the time and
I think roughly it'll be early morning to late morning or late afternoon.
usually.
Yeah, usually.
It is pretty fascinating to see, I mean, I've been in real emergencies, I'm in every site, Kathy, I know too. In actual just being in real emergencies, and then also participating in, hundreds and hundreds of drills over the last, almost 40 years. So, but it's fascinating to see, how it's actually handled, in the Emergency Operations Center. Their fake news conferences and just how, things are handled. And so when we attended before we went, we took, pretty extensive notes and stuff, and then brought it back to the committee. And also, they asked us for, what did you observe? How do you think we could do better? What did we do good? There's some suggestions and stuff. So I think it's beneficial to everybody, involved. And it, like I said, it is kind of fascinating just to be there and watch from the other side of it. So if anybody's interested, if we don't get people from this committee, we will open it up to other committees, and I'm not sure how we'll do that, seniority or what, but I'm a seniority person. So.
I'd like to do it if
Okay,
we get open seats.
I'd like to do it too.
So check.
okay.
That's.
I have something to share on this topic. So at my annual presentation with the Benton County Commissioners, I told them that since I retired, there has not been a representative from the county EOC at the federal EOC. They appointed someone.
Right, good job. I remember you bringing that up at the last board meeting.
Yeah, they did.
Who is that? Do you know?
No.
Oh. Well, maybe we'll find out on the 26th.
Yeah, you might see them.
Yeah.
But getting credentialed for that is no fast process. So they're probably just observing also
Right.
versus participating.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like, Josh, we have our 4. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I have, sounds like we have Rob Parmalee, Rebecca, Susan, and Jeff.
Okay. All right. And then, so you will let us know, like, the whole, I have a badge, so.
Yeah, I'll figure out, I know what things, another change. It used to be like bring your ID and you could get in. You now have to have passport or,
Real ID.
yeah, a real ID to get badged at the federal building. So there's like a little badging office when you walk in. If you're walking in the west door, the back door with the big ramp, they both have big ramps. There's a little badging office, so we'll get the names from Josh. I'm not sure what the process process looks like from here, but I'll figure out who's gonna be at EOC, because I don't think I will. And make sure that you guys are all good to go. Yeah, real ID.
Enhanced ID.
Yeah, it's easiest if you have a passport, just bring it.
Well, enhanced, I can put on site, right? Oh, he's the expert in.
Yeah, so enhanced ID, the real ID, doesn't consider.
Right, if you're purporting it, you need to have a passport.
Yeah.
Because your real ID doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
You know that.
But not for me who hasn't.
Who has it?
No, you're.
But otherwise, if.
Because I have a
Washington-
proxy
yeah,
card to get in.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
But yes, Washington State have to have an enhanced driver's license or a passport.
Yes, and I'll figure out who your point of contact is, we can get you all set up.
Okay. All right, perfect. All right, so we got that taken care of. Are you gonna be there? Okay.
My baby's not born yet, I'll be there.
Exciting.
It's right in the zone of when things could happen, so I'm planning to be there.
Yeah, so this really isn't a drill. This is happening, huh? Okay, so it sounds like then, input for the leadership workshop. I have what our old work plan was. Sounds like we're gonna be getting some, maybe some other direction, some other ideas. So, possibly then it leads to our next meeting planning. I think our next meeting, we'll want to talk about what happened at the leadership workshop, what our work plan looks like for the future. Any kind of advice that was asked for, has been asked for.
And it depends on, this is where it gets weird. If it hasn't been approved by headquarters yet, we should probably be careful about, we won't be able to send it out to everyone, right? So hopefully, because next meeting will be,
September.
oh, yeah, we should, I hope we are.
We have a board meeting in August, we have nothing in July, a board meeting in August for full board, and then next committee meeting is, subcommittee meeting is September. So, yeah, well.
So what about the calendar then? Because I know that that's kind of a big deal, and we usually go over that at the leadership workshop.
Yeah, I'm gonna have it. It has changed quite a bit, in my opinion, for the better. And I'll explain all of that when we get into it. Maybe I need to talk with Sue and Mia and Josh and everyone too. I think we were planning on August being a 1-day full board because there wasn't enough, not enough, that we just didn't have things to fill up the second day. Not that we have to do a second day, but if we want to have the discussion like we did 20 minutes ago, where there's just a bunch of questions, I would be open to having time where we can talk about more than just the leadership team, why the calendar looks the way it does, why the work plan looks the way it does. And we could even look at okay, now we could break off, while some people are in multiple subcommittees going on. We could talk then about, now that you can see if it's approved or not approved, I would share it at the meeting. Now that you can see what it looks like in the work plan, what are some ideas of presentations and discussions you guys need? So we can talk about it and see if that's something that we want to do.
Okay.
Or maybe a committee of the whole, so that it's not a public affair.
Right. Yeah, I know that people like to get the calendar so that they can plan, the next year in advance.
Yeah.
Some people are really busy, busier than others.
I really good sports.
Yeah. All right, so if that's okay with everyone else, then we will just kind of hold out on things to talk about or input for the workshop. I mean, I still have, what our old work plan was and things that we've worked on. And then we'll just, we can see, comes out of that. So the next planning, I was kind of, I'm just gonna say this, I was a little disappointed in our presentations this morning.
Yeah. I can tell you, so I talked to Pam about it. First, I want to apologize. Second, I'm not saying this out loud because it's not official yet. We're 40% staff right now. So we have lost so many people. So Carmen, this is not, Erdif especially is not her area. We have had multiple dry runs with her. I know she was nervous. It's all new subject to her. She had a huge list of if they ask this, this is the answer. And of course, your guys' questions were outside of what she had. So I do apologize, but I also want to give Carmen grace because it's like we're covering so many new positions right now. We're all like drinking from fire hoses. But I do apologize because I understand it was disappointing not having the answers. I'm disappointed that we sat here for 2 hours and didn't, but I don't want to, it's no one's fault, right? And so we have a list of all of the questions. We will send it to her already. I did actually just send an email. No, I didn't. I'm sending it right now to Josh and Chandra to send to you guys. I already have a bunch of info. I'm gonna send you guys the link because it's posted. But the disposing of log glass, secondary waste, all the questions you guys had, and then regress stuff. There's info that was in the WEIR or V law. So I'm gonna send you the link to it, tell you exactly where you can find it, and that should answer a bunch of the questions you guys have already this morning. And then we'll get the answers to the rest and hopefully set up a discussion. So maybe that's something we could discuss at the September LIDS committee if we want to, but.
Yeah, so that's.
One of the things that we experienced in the past.
Yeah.
Is that we didn't just get the DOE person. Pardon?
Yeah.
We also got the contractor project manager. So if the contractor project manager for IDF and IRF had been here, I think that individual in all likelihood, because they lived the project, they could have answered a lot of the questions and been part of her team.
Yeah.
And so she wasn't stuck constantly going, I don't know, I'll have to get back to you.
Yeah.
It was, that person is the person that,
And let's talk about added leadership, and if that's something, so keep in mind, we only have an hour with Brian, so we need to be careful what we're asking, but that might be something that we can request of him so that he's not hearing it just from me secondhand, but that would be nice if, like, the whole idea of discussions rather than presentations and more than just, one rep, right? Like, if we can have multiple.
well, it's a case of, it's like, I know it takes away from the individual's time,
Yeah.
but it allows for, she's the new Stuckey for the activities.
But they could even be virtual, just in case questions get asked, so.
But yeah, if you can have the project managers here,
Yeah, I'll make a note to talk about that.
that saves the cycling.
Okay.
Let me clarify something. Sometimes it's not the project manager or the contractor that knows what's going on.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, well, they're subject matter experts, that.
Yeah, if you have the contractor person.
Whoever from the contractor knows what's going on.
Yeah.
The lights are on.
Yeah, the IDF and the ERDA contractor project managers, they
think-
live it.
But I think there was a push for, probably came from, DOE management, that they wanted their individuals to be able to know what's going on. And I understand that, but I also understand they don't know.
From a management perspective, that's a good thing, but if you've got
The appearance that DOE knows what's happening. And in fact, I know that DOE doesn't always know what's.
well, and especially, I'm just basically being, for trying to, as we can get grace right now.
Yes.
The feds are getting bounced and thrown in, into projects that they may not have the depth with, but if they bring the contractor with them, it's the double advantage. We get to get our questions answered, and that person gets to learn.
Correct, yeah, and I in no way was, saying anything bad about it. I hope
She got stuck in it. Yeah, she was in a tough position.
Yes, she was, yeah,
No,
definitely.
I'm taking the note down. I totally understand, and you're right. I think in the past, they wanted the DOE individual to know what's going on. But in this case, when we're covering 3 positions of people that just left, I think it would be nice to have, but she might have not even known who the contractor counterpart is, right? And so, but I think this is also where if we get questions from you guys beforehand, those questions will also lead us into like, what direction is this gonna go? What SMEs do we need there? So I'll put a note that we can talk about it more on Thursday.
Okay.
I know she felt beat up. You could just see it in her face. And my heart went out to her because you're being, not attacked, but you're getting these questions and you're not being able to answer them.
Right.
So please let her know that at least we appreciate that she came and gave us as much information as she had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We'll let her know.
Because she felt really, when she was getting her stuff ready, she was.
Yeah. It's hard when you don't know, and I can say that from experience because I would look at deer in the headlights at the last full board meeting, and I'm still trying to learn as we go, but it's hard, and we'll all get through it together. Just one day at a time, right? One meeting at a time at this point.
Yes.
So, has there been any talk within your organization, DOE, and that? The structure of our advice? Being that sometimes we get pretty long-winded and we refer to this and that, when the message is pretty simple underneath.
I think we can deal with advice one at a time, but you'll see in the work plan too, like we talked about, it's not just like 3 words and then asking for advice. We've tried to put paragraphs in there now and kind of a recommendation on what time frame in the year we want it. Because there might be a reason behind that, right? Like if we know a decision's coming up in March, then we might ask for it by end of Q2. So yes, and then I think what we can do is as we get to those individual advice pieces, I know on the backside who it was, like what AM drove that advice question, or was it called your EPA? We can work with those individuals and ask them like if there's a certain structure that they want to that.
And Rob, on Thursday's agenda, there is a section in there concerning advice and a discussion on opportunities to improve the process.
Yeah.
So we will have further discussion.
I think we get a little long-winded in some of our advice, and my experience has been if it's on more than 2 pages, probably gets put on the bottom of the pile for.
I can tell you that's not true, at least for mine. Like, I think sometimes you just need more, but I think we can structure it. Every piece of advice is going to be structured different. So I don't want to say like, here's a template, use it, because it's not going to be the same for every piece. But we'll work closer together and make sure that it's going the right way to the right person. And I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'm kind of feeling like maybe an August committee of the whole on Thursday is not a horrible idea. If we can make that work. I know Josh is probably killing me through his eyes right now, but just so that we can hopefully have work plan approved or at least have discussions with everyone, because I can already tell this is going to get talked about at every subcommittee today and tomorrow, plus we have leadership. And I don't think that leadership is going to be long enough for the couple hours because there's other things we have to discuss. So if that works with Sue and Mia and the rest of the team, we might look at entertaining that idea.
You're talking about this Thursday?
No, well, the Thursday following August full board.
Oh, okay.
Or is it Wednesday?
That's
Whatever, yeah, whatever the second day would be.
Okay.
Any of it might not be a bad idea.
Okay. So back to the agenda. One more time. Round it up. So is there any ideas or, like burning desire that anybody has for something? Or Richard, apparently Richard's not going to be there, so it's going to be me. So I'm taking good notes. Something, one thing maybe like the calendar, if we're talking about the calendar. Sometimes there's things on the calendar like, oh, why are we doing it, this time? Maybe this time is better. I don't know. If there's something like that you can think of, I'll be here tomorrow and this afternoon. Also, if you have something that pops in your mind, that you want me to bring up. Otherwise, I think it'll be a learning, opportunity for all of us at the leadership workshop. And, other than that, so we have the EOC drill, covered. Our next meeting planning, probably some answers or presentation from
Erdif and IDIF.
Erdif and IDF again. So we can cover that. And also, next meeting, I think, since we will be attending this EOC drill, maybe a portion of the time to debrief or to talk about that for the people who attended that.
Impression.
Yeah, just, saw, maybe just, have a discussion about that. Is there anything else anybody would like to see on the agenda for our next meeting? We really got to take advantage of, the time because we don't meet as much, like we did in the past. We don't meet as much. So if there's something, also, I don't know if we will have, our response back from DOE on our traffic safety advice.
I would think you.
Hopefully we.
I would think so. Like approvals we have to go through, but I mean, after we have our discussions with Brian Thursday, then that's kind of my goal is to get that ready to go.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so maybe some time slotted out for that as well, to talk about our advice. The response to the advice. And then, and then maybe just a little bit of time for, I like having, I'm actually kind of grateful that the presentations it goes on, because I feel like this committee doesn't really ever get a chance to just sit and, talk, because usually there's, okay, now it's the next committee's turn, and so, I am grateful for that we got some extra time. So, maybe we could carve out a little bit of time just for, committee discussion. Because I think it's going to be a lot to digest from the sounds of it. So, I don't know.
And it's
What do you guys
gonna
know?
be different, not a lot, but.
Right. That's all agree. Is there anything else? Anybody else wants to see?
Just an answer to the question that we had before on traffic with the transport of the LAW logs and the road condition to the final restings.
From Erden for IDF, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay,
Those
yeah.
big transports.
Okay,
Somebody had asked a question about the net weight
yeah,
of each one, and there's several tons, so what's it doing to a road? Is there an impact there? How many thousands of trips or, those kinds of
I
questions.
was just looking at number of tires on the transporter.
I know, it's a lot of tires.
That's a lot of tires.
Yeah.
Like when they send the submarine reactors out there. Crazy.
yeah,
Those
Yeah.
guys are big.
that was fun work.
My
got
father
pizza.
works it.
There was always pizza, but, we get to do the sub, anyway.
Getting from law to.
Huh?
Getting from law to IDF really doesn't go over very many heavily traveled roads, I don't think.
It goes on Route 4S, so
Fort S,
4 South.
I know, but you say. Well, I'm surprised it does that.
Well, that's why I asked.
I don't think it will. I think it'll go straight from the bid plant right down through the center of the central plateau.
Yeah.
But now we got pull out of the main road.
That's.
Yeah, I don't.
We'll add that to the questions on.
Yeah.
15.
We'll clarify that, because there'd be no reason to go.
Or you can just go through the desert.
Yeah, they can go right through the central plateau. Right to,
Okay, are we done?
Yeah. Hey, we still have a half an hour. We can All right, is there any other discussion, anything before we adjourn this meeting?
There was something that came out of the March LIDS business. You mentioned there was a DSA issue that you're concerned about, but then I'm coming at that.
Yeah, I actually found that, what I was talking about, and, don't ask me right now. So, I did find it, and I'll have to look at my paperwork, because I think I printed it out. I don't remember exactly, I mean, I know, but I can't say it. I can't repeat it, because I don't want to get it wrong.
Was it something that they should be following up on?
Yes, I believe so. It has to do with, land use. So, but I will get back to you later on that. I mean, it's not something that's like an emergency, so. All right, going once. And twice. Okay, thank you, everybody, for coming and your participation today.